Ukraine's drone attacks on Russia have gotten so effective that NATO just committed $40 billion in response. This isn't just a story about the Ukraine-Russia war anymore. It's a story about how one country's drone campaign against Putin's Russia is quietly rewriting the defense plans of 32 nations at once. On July 7, 2026, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte announced what the alliance is calling the NATO Drone Edge Initiative, a commitment from member states to invest more than $40 billion in counter-drone capabilities over the next 5 years, alongside a goal to train 5 times as many drone operators by the end of 2027. Rutte framed it directly around what's happening in this war, saying the alliance is building a drone-ready alliance by learning real-world lessons from the battlefield in Ukraine. That's a NATO Secretary General publicly admitting that an entire defense alliance is restructuring its investment plans around lessons learned from watching Ukraine's drone attacks on Russia play out in real time. Here's the part that explains why this shift happened at all. According to Morningstar analyst Loredana Muharremi, Ukraine became the global leader in drone warfare purely out of necessity. Facing a larger, better-equipped Russian military, it couldn't compete symmetrically. So it was forced to innovate rapidly, using low-cost, commercially available drones adapted for military use. The real innovation wasn't the drone technology itself. It was the procurement model. Ukraine built a faster innovation cycle than legacy Western defense contractors, whose development timelines often span years, by putting the military, domestic startups, and private industry directly in the same room, allowing new technology to go from idea to deployed weapon in weeks rather than years. And the scale Ukraine has reached is almost hard to process. Air Chief Marshal Johnny Stringer, NATO's deputy military commander, said Ukraine produced around 5,000 drones total in 2022, the first year of the full-scale invasion. In 2026, Ukraine is on track to produce well north of 5 million drones of all types in a single year, a thousandfold increase in 4 years. For comparison, independent military analysts estimate China produces around 2 million drones annually, mostly for civilian use, while Russia's own wartime industry produces somewhere between 1.2 and 1.8 million a year, according to Ukrainian intelligence estimates. Ukraine's own deputy defense minister has told NATO lawmakers the country could scale to 20 million drones a year if allies provide sufficient funding. Meaning, what we're watching isn't just a military campaign, it's arguably the largest rapid weapons manufacturing buildup by any single country in the world right now. And this production surge is exactly what's been fueling the specific attacks we've covered. Refineries in Omsk, Syzran, and Salavat. The Highway of Death. Operation Spiderweb. But zoom out, and the cumulative economic effect becomes the real headline. Ukraine's intensified strikes on Russian energy infrastructure throughout 2026 have caused gasoline shortages stretching across Russia's 11 time zones, leaving ordinary drivers facing long lines and fuel rationing at gas stations nationwide. This campaign has also reached Russia's ports. During a July 5th attack on the St. Petersburg region, Russian officials confirmed 72 drones were shot down, while a separate strike hit the port of Vysotsk, which handles oil, grain, coal, and liquefied natural gas for the wider region. 2 days later, the Institute for the Study of War assessed that Ukrainian forces struck 8 Russian Shadow Fleet tankers, a dry cargo ship, and a ferry in the Sea of Azov, all transporting gasoline. Here's the part of this story most people miss entirely. The same drone tactics that make Ukraine dangerous to Russia also expose a real vulnerability for NATO itself. As one defense analyst put it, a brigade headquarters, an artillery battery, a radar site, a fuel depot, or an airbase can now be struck by equipment that costs far less than the interceptor missile needed to shoot it down. That math doesn't favor traditional Western air defense, which was built to intercept a handful of expensive missiles, not swarms of cheap ones. And there's a sobering data point reinforcing this. During the recent U.S. conflict with Iran, more Patriot interceptor missiles were fired in just the first few days of that campaign than during the entire 4.5 years of the war in Ukraine. That's the kind of magazine depth problem NATO's $40 billion commitment is specifically trying to get ahead of before it becomes their own crisis. And this shift isn't just happening at the NATO institutional level, it's happening industry-wide, especially in Europe. Since the war began, the number of Ukrainian drone and counter-drone companies has jumped from 41 in 2022 to 132 in 2023 to 183 by 2024, according to GIS reports. European governments are now actively partnering with these companies directly. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz visited Berlin's chancellery specifically to review German-Ukrainian drone cooperation. And a major NATO exercise called Hedgehog 2025, involving 16,000 troops from 12 countries in Estonia, was designed in part specifically to test whether NATO forces were even prepared for this new kind of drone-saturated warfare. And it's not just a collective NATO effort. Individual member states are racing ahead with their own national programs, worried that waiting for alliance-wide coordination will simply be too slow. Germany has been developing what's been informally called a drone wall concept along parts of its eastern border, drawing directly on lessons from Ukrainian engagements. The United Kingdom, Norway, and France have all shown active interest in Ukrainian-developed drone and electronic warfare technology, according to industry sources tracking the sector, with several allied militaries reportedly placing direct orders for systems originally built for Ukrainian battlefield conditions, rather than waiting for domestic equivalents to be developed from scratch. It's a genuinely unusual dynamic in modern defense procurement. Wealthy NATO members buying combat-tested technology from a country still actively at war, rather than the other way around, simply because nothing else on the market has been proven under this much real-world pressure. But there's a catch built into this entire success story that defense experts keep flagging. The same deep strike drone campaign that's stalling Russia's military momentum has also drastically raised the overall risk of escalation. Every refinery hit thousands of kilometers from the frontline forces Russia to spread its air defenses across its entire territory rather than concentrating on Ukraine. But it also raises the stakes of what Russia might eventually feel forced to do in response. NATO's $40 billion bet is essentially a wager that arming itself with Ukraine's lessons now is cheaper than learning them the hard way later, in a conflict of its own. So why does a funding announcement matter as much as any single strike we've covered? Because it means the war happening right now inside Russia isn't staying contained to Russia and Ukraine. It's actively rewriting how 32 nations plan to fight the next war, whatever and wherever that turns out to be. If you enjoyed this breakdown, give the video a like and consider subscribing. It really helps us keep making more videos like this one for you.